For weeks, nobody understood why the old horse kept returning to the exact same spot near the abandoned field. Every single morning, before sunrise, he would walk there alone, paw the dirt furiously, and refuse to leave. Farmers thought the animal had gone crazy. Kids from the town started gathering just to watch him dig deeper and deeper every day. But then, one morning, the horse suddenly began screaming and kicking the ground harder than ever before. That's when the old ranch owner grabbed a shovel and uncovered something buried beneath the soil that left the entire town frozen in shock. Because hidden under that patch of earth was a secret nobody had touched for over 70 years. Before we uncover the shocking secret hidden beneath that field, make sure you subscribe right now, because stories like this only get crazier. And while you watch, tell us in the comments, what do you think the horse discovered underground after all those weeks of digging? Don't forget to hit the like button, share this story with your friends, and press the bell icon so you never miss our next mystery. Every morning before sunrise, the old brown horse would leave the broken stable and walk slowly across the empty ranch toward the same lonely patch of dirt near the fence line. The wind blew softly across the dry grass as the animal stopped in the exact same place every single day. Then, without hesitation, the horse began digging furiously with his front legs. Dirt scattered everywhere as he kicked the ground over and over again, like he was searching for something hidden beneath the earth. Nobody understood why he kept doing it. The ranch had been abandoned for years, and nothing important was ever believed to be buried there. But the horse never missed a morning. Rain or cold, darkness or heat, he always returned to that exact spot and dug harder than the day before. Sometimes he would continue for hours until his legs trembled with exhaustion, yet he still refused to stop. The strange behavior quickly became the biggest mystery in the small town nearby. Farmers whispered about it at the local store, while old men sitting outside the gas station claimed the animal had lost its mind. Some people believed the horse was simply reacting to loneliness after spending years alone on the dying ranch. Others joked that maybe the animal had seen a ghost buried beneath the field. Before long, curious children started visiting the ranch every afternoon just to watch the strange horse dig. They sat on the old wooden fence, laughing and placing bets on how deep the horse would go before sunset. But after several weeks passed, the laughter slowly disappeared. The hole was growing larger every day, and the horse seemed more desperate than ever. Even the children began feeling uneasy whenever they watched the animal claw at the dirt with wild determination in his eyes. The only person who truly paid attention to the horse was the ranch's elderly owner, Walter Hayes. Walter had lived on the ranch his entire life and remembered stories most people in town had forgotten long ago. The horse, named Rusty, once belonged to Walter's older brother Samuel Hayes, a legendary rancher known throughout the region decades earlier. Samuel was respected by everyone for his courage, wealth, and mysterious lifestyle. But one stormy night nearly 20 years ago, Samuel vanished without a trace. No body was ever found, and many believed he had taken dangerous secrets with him to the grave. After Samuel disappeared, the ranch slowly fell apart. Workers left, animals were sold, and the once famous land became nothing more than an empty field filled with memories. Yet through all those years, Rusty remained. Walter often wondered if the old horse somehow remembered something no human could explain. One cold morning, everything suddenly changed. The children arrived at the ranch expecting to watch Rusty dig like always, but the horse was acting differently. His breathing was heavy, and his eyes looked wild with panic. Instead of calmly pawing at the dirt, Rusty began attacking the ground violently. He kicked harder than ever before, digging so aggressively that mud and rocks flew through the air. When Walter tried approaching him, the horse let out a loud, terrifying scream that echoed across the empty ranch. Then Rusty slammed his hooves into the earth again and again until something beneath the dirt made a strange metallic sound. The entire crowd froze in silence. Walter stared at the hole with fear growing in his eyes because deep down, he suddenly realized the horse may not have been digging randomly at all. Walter could not stop thinking about the strange metallic sound that came from beneath the ground. Long after the children ran home and the ranch became quiet again, he stood beside the deep hole staring into the darkness below. Rusty remained nearby, breathing heavily as if the old horse had finally reached something important after weeks of digging. That night, Walter sat alone inside the broken ranch house while memories he had buried for years slowly returned to him. He remembered the stories people once whispered about his older brother Samuel Hayes. Back in his younger days, Samuel was more than just a rancher. He was one of the richest men in the county, owning thousands of acres of land and large herds of cattle that made him famous across the region. But Samuel was also secretive. He trusted almost nobody and often disappeared for days without explaining where he had gone. Many believed he was hiding something valuable, though no one ever discovered the truth. Years ago, rumors spread through the town that Samuel had been protecting a fortune hidden somewhere on the ranch. Some claimed it was gold coins collected during illegal cattle trades near the border. Others believed Samuel had discovered treasure left behind by soldiers decades earlier. The stories became even stranger after Samuel vanished during a violent thunderstorm nearly 20 years ago. According to the townspeople, Samuel rode out into the storm late one night carrying several heavy wooden boxes in the back of his wagon. Witnesses claimed they saw lantern lights moving across the ranch fields shortly before midnight. But by sunrise, Samuel had disappeared completely. His horse returned alone, covered in mud and terrified, but Samuel himself was never seen again. Search parties spent weeks looking across the mountains, rivers, and forests nearby, yet no trace of the famous rancher was ever found. Eventually, people stopped searching and accepted that the storm had taken him forever. As Walter sat beside the fireplace, he remembered something else from that night long ago. Rusty had belonged to Samuel since birth and followed him everywhere like a loyal shadow. The horse had witnessed everything Samuel did during his final days. Walter suddenly wondered if Rusty had somehow remembered where Samuel buried those mysterious boxes before disappearing. The thought sent chills through his body. Outside, the cold wind howled across the abandoned ranch while Rusty stood near the digging site under the moonlight, refusing to leave the area even for a moment. Walter grabbed an old photograph from the dusty shelf beside him. The faded picture showed Samuel standing proudly beside Rusty many years earlier. Behind them was the exact same field where the horse had been digging every day. Walter stared closely at the photo and noticed something he had never paid attention to before. Near the fence line in the background stood a large oak tree that no longer existed today. It had been destroyed during the massive storm the same night Samuel vanished. The next morning, Walter returned to the hole before sunrise. Rusty was already there, scratching at the dirt again with unstoppable determination. Soon, word spread through town about the strange metallic sound beneath the ground, and even more people arrived at the ranch hoping to witness something unbelievable. Some carried shovels while others whispered excitedly about buried treasure. But Walter remained silent. Deep inside, he feared the truth hidden beneath the earth might be far darker than anyone imagined. As Rusty continued digging furiously, Walter noticed pieces of old wood beginning to appear through the dirt. The horse suddenly stopped, lifted his head toward the sky, and let out a loud cry that echoed across the empty ranch. In that moment, Walter realized the secret buried beneath the ground was finally about to reveal itself after remaining hidden for nearly 20 years. By the end of the week, the abandoned ranch no longer felt empty. Cars lined the dusty road from sunrise until late evening as people from nearby towns arrived hoping to witness the mystery for themselves. News about the horse digging in the same spot for weeks had spread faster than anyone expected. Some visitors came out of curiosity, while others arrived believing a hidden fortune truly existed beneath the field. Rusty continued digging every single day without rest, his powerful legs striking the earth harder than ever before. The hole had now become so deep that several men could stand inside it comfortably. Dirt covered the horse from head to tail, but he refused to stop. Even when Walter tried pulling him away to eat or rest, Rusty always broke free and returned to the same spot immediately. It was almost as if the old horse knew time was running out. As excitement grew, greed slowly followed. One night, Walter woke to strange noises outside the ranch house. When he stepped onto the porch carrying his lantern, he spotted 3 men secretly digging near the hole under the darkness of night. They had brought shovels, ropes, and metal detectors, hoping to uncover the treasure before anyone else could claim it. Furious, Walter chased them off the property with his old shotgun while Rusty stood nearby stomping aggressively at the ground. After that night, Walter realized the ranch was no longer safe. Rumors about Samuel Hayes's missing fortune had turned the peaceful town into a place filled with desperate treasure hunters. Some people offered Walter money for permission to dig. Others threatened him, believing he already knew where the treasure was hidden. But Walter refused everyone. Deep inside, he feared that whatever Samuel buried years ago carried secrets far more dangerous than gold. The mystery soon attracted the attention of local reporters. A young journalist named Emily Carter arrived from the city carrying cameras and notebooks, determined to uncover the truth behind the strange horse. Unlike the others, Emily seemed more interested in the story of Rusty and Samuel than the possibility of treasure. She spent hours interviewing Walter beside the old ranch house while the horse continued digging in the distance. Walter explained how loyal Rusty had always been to Samuel, describing how the horse followed him through storms, cattle drives, and dangerous winters without ever leaving his side. Emily listened carefully as Walter shared stories nobody in town had heard for years. But as night approached, even she became unsettled by Rusty's behavior. The horse looked exhausted, yet something in his eyes burned with desperation. Emily quietly admitted she had never seen an animal act with such determination before. The following morning, a huge crowd gathered around the hole after hearing new rumors that wooden boards had been discovered underground. Rusty was already digging wildly before sunrise, kicking dirt so violently that people struggled to stand close to him. Suddenly, his hoof slammed against something solid beneath the earth. A loud metallic clang echoed through the field, instantly silencing the entire crowd. Everyone froze. Walter climbed carefully into the hole while Emily pointed her camera downward with shaking hands. Beneath layers of dirt and broken wood, something dark and metallic was finally visible under the ground. Walter brushed away mud slowly until the corner of a large iron-covered object appeared beneath the soil. Gasps spread through the crowd as people realized the impossible might actually be true. Rusty stepped closer to the edge of the hole and stared downward silently, breathing heavily as if he had finally completed the mission he had carried for decades. But before anyone could uncover the object completely, the earth around the hole suddenly shifted, causing part of the ground to collapse inward. Panic erupted as Walter nearly lost his footing inside the deep pit. And buried beneath the falling dirt, another strange object briefly became visible beside the iron chest, something that looked disturbingly like an old human skeleton. Fear spread across the ranch the moment the ground collapsed inside the hole. Several people backed away instantly while others climbed onto the fence to get a better look. Walter barely managed to pull himself out before the loose dirt buried his legs. Emily helped him to safety as the crowd stared silently at the dark shape now partially exposed beneath the soil. Rusty stood near the edge of the pit, breathing heavily but strangely calm, almost as if the horse knew the truth could no longer remain hidden. Walter grabbed a shovel with trembling hands and slowly climbed back down into the hole. This time, several townsmen joined him carefully. Together, they removed dirt piece by piece until the buried object finally became clear. It was an old iron-covered chest nearly 6 feet long, its surface rusted by decades underground. Beside it, partially buried in the mud, rested human bones covered by the remains of an old leather coat. A wave of shock moved through the crowd. Emily lowered her camera, unable to speak as Walter knelt silently beside the skeleton. Even before anyone said a word, deep inside Walter already knew who the remains belonged to. Around the skeleton's wrist was a silver watch Samuel Hayes wore every day of his life. Walter's eyes filled with tears as memories rushed back into his mind. For nearly 20 years, the town believed Samuel had disappeared somewhere beyond the mountains during the storm. But the truth had been buried beneath the ranch the entire time. Rusty slowly walked toward the edge of the hole and looked down at the remains of his former owner without making a sound. The old horse had spent weeks digging because he had never forgotten where Samuel was buried. As the sun began setting behind the hills, the chest was finally pulled from the ground using ropes and chains attached to a truck. The crowd gathered silently around it while Walter struggled to steady his shaking hands. Rust covered the heavy lock sealing the chest shut for decades. Everyone watched breathlessly as Walter lifted an old hammer and struck the lock repeatedly until it finally snapped open with a loud crack. Slowly, he lifted the lid. Inside the chest were stacks of gold coins, bundles of cash wrapped in faded cloth, silver bars, old pocket watches, and dozens of valuable documents tied together with leather straps. Gasps echoed through the crowd as sunlight reflected across the treasure. But among the riches sat something even more important, a small wooden box containing letters and photographs carefully protected from moisture all those years. Walter opened the first letter carefully and immediately recognized Samuel's handwriting. The crowd fell completely silent as Walter began reading aloud. In the letter, Samuel explained everything. Years earlier, he had discovered a group of criminals stealing money through illegal land deals across the county. Samuel secretly collected evidence against them, including documents proving who was involved. Knowing dangerous men would come searching for him, he buried the evidence and his fortune beneath the ranch to protect it. But during the stormy night he hid the chest. Samuel suffered a deadly injury after his horse wagon overturned near the field. Unable to escape the storm, he died beside the buried treasure before anyone could find him. Only Rusty witnessed what truly happened that night. Walter's voice broke as he finished reading the final lines of the letter. Samuel had written that if anyone ever discovered the chest, they should thank Rusty because the horse would never abandon him, even after death. Tears rolled down Walter's face as he looked toward the old horse standing quietly beside the fence. The entire town suddenly realized they were not simply witnessing the discovery of treasure. They were witnessing the loyalty of an animal that had protected his owner's secret for nearly 20 years and refused to let the truth stay buried forever. Within days, the story of Rusty and the hidden treasure spread far beyond the small town. News stations from across the country arrived at the ranch, broadcasting the unbelievable discovery to millions of people. Reporters called it one of the most mysterious treasure stories ever uncovered. Historians examined Samuel Hayes's letters and confirmed that the documents inside the chest exposed a criminal operation that had secretly controlled land deals in the region decades earlier. The gold coins and cash hidden underground were worth a fortune, but to many people, the real treasure was the truth finally revealed after nearly 20 years. Crowds gathered daily outside the ranch gates, hoping to catch a glimpse of the legendary horse who refused to abandon his owner even after death. Emily Carter's article about Rusty became famous nationwide, turning the old ranch into a place people traveled hundreds of miles to visit. Despite the sudden attention and wealth, Walter refused to sell the ranch. Many businessmen offered enormous amounts of money for the land after hearing about the treasure, but Walter turned them all away. He believed the ranch belonged to Samuel's memory and to Rusty, who had protected its secrets for decades. Instead of keeping the fortune for himself, Walter used part of the money to restore the broken property. Workers repaired the old barns, rebuilt fences, and brought life back to the land that had once been abandoned and forgotten. Samuel Hayes was finally given a proper burial beside the large oak tree that had been replanted near the field where the chest was found. Nearly the entire town attended the ceremony. Even the people who once laughed at the old stories stood silently with tears in their eyes as Walter thanked Rusty for bringing his brother home at last. Rusty quickly became more than just a horse in the eyes of the public. To many people, he became a symbol of loyalty and memory that seemed almost impossible to explain. Children who once watched him digging now visited the ranch just to feed him apples and brush his coat. Artists painted pictures of him while writers published stories describing the incredible bond between the horse and Samuel Hayes. Some people believed Rusty had simply remembered where his owner died. Others believed something deeper connected the animal to the hidden secret buried beneath the ranch. But no matter what people believed, everyone agreed on one thing. Without Rusty, the truth would have remained hidden forever beneath the earth. As months passed, life around the ranch slowly became peaceful again. The crowds disappeared, reporters moved on to new stories, and the excitement surrounding the treasure faded with time. But every evening before sunset, Walter still walked with Rusty across the quiet field where everything had happened. The old horse had grown weaker after weeks of exhausting digging, yet he always stopped near the same place and stared calmly across the land as the wind moved through the grass. Walter often wondered if Rusty understood that his mission was finally complete. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky deep orange, Walter stood beside Rusty near Samuel's grave. The ranch was silent except for the sound of wind rustling through the trees. Rusty slowly lowered his head and gently nudged Walter's shoulder before looking toward the field one final time. Walter placed his hand softly against the horse's neck, tears filling his eyes as he whispered words of gratitude. In that quiet moment, Walter realized the treasure hidden beneath the ranch had never truly been about gold or money. The real treasure was loyalty that survived time, storms, and even death itself. And long after the story faded from headlines, people in the town still told the same unbelievable tale to future generations. The story of the horse who dug in the same spot for weeks because he refused to let his owner's secret stay buried forever.